and welcome back to the No Score Review Show, where we have in-depth critique and nuanced discussion of some of the latest movies, video games, and television. And television is what we'll be talking about today. I am your host, Nick Green, and today I am going to be reviewing Echo, the latest project from the MCU to hit Disney Plus. And this is the first official review of 2024 for the No Score Review Show. This will be a spoiler-free review. I will not be going into any explicit plot or character details for the show. And I just recently finished this series this past weekend. It released January 10th, a few days ago, as of recording. And first off, I'll just kind of talk about my expectations going into this one. If any of you have been keeping up with the MCU, particularly the show side of things on Disney Plus, you might share the same sentiment, I should say, with me, that it's been very inconsistent and very weak a lot of the time. There's really only been a few standout shows for me, in particular. Moon Knight, Loki, both seasons, and Hawkeye were probably the three big hitters for me out of all of their shows. A few of them showed a lot of promise and then kind of petered out a lot of the way through, or just like from the very get-go, it wasn't that great a project to begin with. But Echo, who made her first appearance in the Hawkeye show, I think I remember enjoying her quite a bit. I think she maybe didn't get quite enough time in that show to fully be developed necessarily. I think her whole arc with her father and Wilson Fisk, Kingpin, and the Ronin character were pretty good. So it wasn't like it didn't leave a sour taste in my mouth. I definitely was looking forward to seeing more of her, and she had definitely some of the Daredevil vibes and everything going on in that show, which was really cool to see. And so I was pretty like middle of the road when I heard that she was going to be getting her own series on Disney Plus. But it was the trailer that really kind of sold me on this. It very much harkened back to the Netflix Daredevil show trailers, and just the kind of tone overall felt very grounded, very gritty, lots of intense violence and like really interesting like choreography with the stunts and the action and everything. So it looked very promising, and like that darker, more street level tone. It looked like it had a lot of focus between her. I guess Maya Lopez is her like alias or her real name. A lot of focus between Maya and the Kingpin, which I mean, if you're a big fan of the Daredevil show like I am, then Vincent D'Onofrio was a huge highlight for you, like he was for me and most people who watch that show. So I was very eager to see more of that come back into play with her own series. Although the way her and Kingpin's relationship, I guess, is left off at the end of Hawkeye, leaves a bit to be like questioned. I won't spoil anything for that, but yeah, it's just an interesting like way to end their relationship, and then also have them bring him back. But the trailer got me really excited. I was really excited to kind of go back to that more street level, more grounded tone with this show. But that's kind of where it stopped for me. Um, like the trailer shows uh, like that promise tonally with the characters and everything, and then we even get like a split second tease of Daredevil appearing in the show. And I won't speak to how explicitly the trailer measures up to the show overall, but I definitely think it sells that series short. It definitely promises a lot more than it actually delivers in terms of that tone, that gritty street level tone, more like crime oriented, dealing with like the various gang bosses and like the Kingpin, obviously, and like the criminal underground of New York side of things. It barely really even gets into it at all. Um, which isn't necessarily a fault of the show. It's more like what you kind of go in expecting from the marketing and everything. And I only ever watched the first trailer, so I didn't watch like the Hurt trailer or anything or any of the other marketing, which is usually the case with how I approach these Marvel projects. I don't need to know a ton going in. Um, and oftentimes it seems that the more of this marketing stuff you take in, the more you can end up being disappointed because, like, the case with the Marvels movie that came out at the end of last year, like they brought in like Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, Iron Man and Captain America in the trailers, and then that kind of like leads you to believe that like maybe they're going to show up in some capacity, and then that just like doesn't happen at all. So it's just a very odd marketing strategy from Marvel and Disney to try and get more butts and seats, or maybe more subscriptions sold, or people tuning in to Disney Plus. I don't really know what the strategy is there, if it is that. Um, so yeah, I try to steer clear of most of it for the most part. Um, but yeah, overall, the show doesn't quite deliver on the tone and promise of the trailer that it kind of sets up. It kind of, in terms of the like action and choreography, it's actually quite light. There's really only two uh, like noteworthy action sequences, fight sequences in the 5 episode show. There's one in the premiere or pilot, whatever you want to call it, and then in I think episode 3 at a skate rink, a roller skate rink. And I think both of them are quite well done and actually pretty evocative of the like Daredevil series, especially in terms of like violence overall. But yeah, it very much lacked that everywhere else, and the kind of focus on Wilson Fisk and Maya Lopez's relationship is kind of put on the back burner until like the last 2 episodes. So it takes up less than half of the overall like runtime, I guess, of the entire show, which is a bit unfortunate. It leaves a lot to be desired there. Um, I I don't think they handled Kingpin as well as they have in the past. Like it's definitely appearing to be a lot of diminishing returns. Just in terms of his, like, I don't think it's any fault of Vincent D'Onofrio because I think he brings it every single time, but it's just a matter of the material he's given. He is like, he lacks a lot of that intimidation and fear factor that he had going for him in the Daredevil series, but still overall enjoyable. It's not like it was a huge departure from the character. He's still very much in line with those uh, series in the past, both Daredevil and Hawkeye. Um, but yeah, it's feeling like a bit of diminishing returns. Alaqua Cox as Maya Lopez, or Echo, carries the show. I think she is the definitive highlight of the show for sure, which is good because that's kind of what you want in a like original character solo series. If they're not good, then that's a major fault of the show itself. But yeah, Alaqua Cox was amazing. I believe I read she did all of her own stunts, which is very impressive. I also didn't even realize she was not only actually deaf in real life, but also an actual amputee as well. So just like shows like the amount of talent Alaqua Cox has. She easily carries the show the whole time. But beyond that, there's maybe one other supporting character, Chask Spencer, who is like another kind of shady criminal boss that works for Fisk, but also has kind of familial connections to Maya in the show, or like hometown connections to Maya. And he is probably the next in line in terms of notable performances and characters. Even then, his character work isn't that, like, it's not explored that much. So there's a bit to be desired there. A lot of the things they set up with some of the characters aren't really explored at all. Like Maya's cousin Bonnie, there's a relationship there and a falling out there that doesn't nearly get as much exploration as they kind of set it up to be. And I think the other thing with this show is 5 episodes is really not that much time, especially with the amount of things they try to set up and execute. Um, the other thing, kind of going back to the whole trailer and the expectations of this whole show, is the grounded nature and the street level, again, tone of this show, and more realistic tone, I guess, if you want to say that. Like, very early on, there's like, I think, 3 cold opens for this show that lean hard into like the fantastical side of things, and it's very much interwoven with the like indigenous culture, which I found that aspect of it very fascinating, and it was a very different take and very different side of the MCU we've never seen before, which I did appreciate. I love that they were able to interweave the indigenous culture into these fantastical like myths and legends, and the like some power things that are involved, like superpowers. Um, the execution of it is pretty weak overall. Like, there's a climactic moment in the finale that feels very out of left field and very kind of silly overall, especially in compared to the rest of the show. I don't really know if they had a clear vision on the direction of the like, it felt very half baked in terms of the setup of connecting Maya to these generations of indigenous tribes and like different female characters throughout the time of the Choctaw Nation, which is the indigenous tribe that this series focuses on. And it feels very at odds with itself, both the kind of grounded street level, like criminal underground side of the show, and the fantastical indigenous culture side. They don't quite mesh a lot of the time, and I think that was another pretty big weak point of it overall. I also just was a little like confused on what the kind of message of the show was, or like Maya's journey. She's very much, I like, there were notes of it of her trying to rid her criminal past and her familial connection to Fisk and like Kingpin, and then embracing her roots and her family that she kind of, not really through any fault of her own, left behind in the past. So yeah, on a lot of fronts, it kind of falls short. And overall, that kind of made this series as a whole not really feel necessary. I and it's also the first series to use the Marvel Spotlight banner, which I think, to my understanding anyway, means it doesn't have any direct connection to the MCU in terms of necessary plot or moments that will be like noteworthy going forward for like the big crossover events, or the big like the end games, if you will. And this is very much just kind of a side story with a like character kind of on their own that can be enjoyed on its own, which like in practice it does, like it works, like it feels very contained for the most part, uh but yeah, it just still doesn't feel that worthwhile, honestly. I very much do want to see more of Alakwa Cox and Maya Lopez going forward. I I don't know if we'll get an Echo season 2, or if she will end up playing a big role in Daredevil Born Again potentially. That would be great to see. I would love to see her and Charlie Cox interact more. It's also just going to be very interesting seeing how that dynamic plays out if she ends up getting a bigger role in the Daredevil show. But yeah, I can't say, even though it's only 5 episodes, like it's not a huge chunk of time to sink into it. I don't know that it's still worthwhile necessarily in the grand scheme of things. I ranked it in my list of the Disney Plus shows for the MCU, and it's towards the bottom end. Like, I think it's probably right on par with She-Hulk. There was a lot more notable problems I had with She-Hulk. Uh, so this one kind of feels overall like a better package, like sort of. But there are definitely higher highs in She-Hulk that I enjoyed way more. So I really hope they can kind of course correct and maybe embrace some more of that like Netflix Daredevil DNA that everyone seems to be clamoring so much for, myself included. I'd love to get back to that more character focused, more low stakes, street level again, kind of gritty tone. Hopeful for the future and very, very pleasantly surprised by Alakwa Cox, and happy to see more of Vincent D'Onofrio as well. So I would say my kind of synopsis review for Echo season one is probably just to check out the fight sequences on YouTube once it like kind of has its own compilation there. But otherwise, not really something you need to go out and get a Disney Plus subscription for. That's for sure. So yeah, that's kind of where we'll leave it for this review, the first review of 2024. Please stick around to the No Score Review Show on YouTube and your favorite podcast listening services for more reviews on movies, TV, and video games coming this year. I will be having more guests on as well. I'm going to be trying to get some returning faces as well as some new and fresh faces to the channel as well. And I'm also going to just try and embrace a little bit more of the solo review stuff and just solo videos as well. So please be looking forward to that. And otherwise, you can find me on all the socials at No Score or at No Score Reviews. In the meantime, you can also go check out a video I have either uploaded by now or will be uploading very soon of my top 10 most anticipated releases for 2024. I kind of go over 10 of the most exciting things to me that are coming out. They span mostly movies, but there is a couple TV shows and video games in there as well. So be sure to go check that out, as well as my 2023 year in review with a bunch of guests I had on throughout the year last year, where we talk about our favorite picks of the year, what stood out to us. So yeah, go check that out. Thanks again so much for watching and listening. And as always, we will see you in the next one. Bye bye.